The storms are getting worse. We have to keep moving.
I'm scared. Where are we going?
To shelter. Stay close.
The rain did not fall like ordinary rain. It hissed. It burned. It carried the bitter scent of metal and death as it slashed across the wasteland in silver sheets. The storm sirens had wailed an hour ago, echoing through the broken skyline of old Varek City, warning anyone still foolish enough to wander outside. Most had run for shelter, he had not. Kale tightened the scarf around his mouth and squinted through the radioactive downpour. His cloak woven with scavenged lead thread lining hung heavy across his shoulders. It was meant to protect one body from the storm's lethal touch. Only one. And yet, ahead of him, half collapsed beside a crumbling transport pillar, he saw her. She was small, cloaked in torn fabric far too thin for this kind of weather. Her silver hair clung to her face, glowing faintly beneath the toxic rain. She wasn't moving. Damn it, he muttered. He should have kept walking. In the outer sectors, survival meant one rule: don't stop. But when lightning cracked across the ash-soaked sky and illuminated her face, Bell, too still, far too young, his feet disobeyed his logic. He ran. The rain bit into his exposed hands like acid. By the time he reached her, the skin across his knuckles was already blistering. "Hey!" he shouted over the storm. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. They weren't human. They shimmered with a strange violet hue, pupils narrow and elongated like a predator's but filled with fear. "Plead," she whispered, voice trembling. "Don't leave me, leave her." He almost laughed at the irony. Instead, Kale tore his cloak from his shoulders and dropped to his knees, wrapping it around her completely. The lined interior shielded against radiation spikes. Barely it would by time, but only for one of them. "What about you?" she asked weakly as he pulled her against his chest, shielding her head from the rain with his own body. "I've survived worse," he lied. The storm intensified. Toxic droplets sizzled against his back. He felt the heat soak through his shirt, biting into flesh. The Geiger counter strapped to his belt began clicking wildly. "Too high. Way too high. We need to move," he growled. He lifted her. Weighed almost nothing. Each step through the flooded street felt like wading through poison. Abandoned vehicles lay overturned like skeletons. Neon signs flickered uselessly through the haze. "Why?" she whispered faintly. "Why? Help me." He didn't answer immediately. Because once, long ago, no one had helped his sister in a storm just like this. Because guilt was heavier than radiation burns. Because he was a fool. Because you were there, he finally said. Her fingers clutched weakly at his shirt beneath the cloak. Another crack of thunder split the sky, and a nearby building facade collapsed with a deafening roar. Shockwaves rippled through the ground, nearly knocking him off balance. He stumbled but did not fall. He could see the shelter bunker ahead now, a reinforced metro entrance half buried in debris. 50 meters. 40. His breathing grew ragged. The counter on his belt screamed warnings. His back felt like it was on fire. 30 meters. The girl's breathing steadied beneath the cloak. Protected. Good 20. His vision blurred at the edges. 10. He crashed through the bunker doors and slammed them shut behind him. The sudden silence was deafening. Only the distant howl of the storm remained. Kale staggered forward 2 steps, then collapsed. When he woke, the storm had passed. Dim emergency lights cast the bunker in dull red. He lay on a cot. His back was bandaged. The air smelled sterile, and he was not alone. Men in dark armor stood at attention along the walls. Their uniforms were pristine, bearing a crest he hadn't seen in years. A rising sun pierced by twin blades. The royal sigil of Estra. His heart skipped. Impossible. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. She stood taller now, no longer trembling. Clean robes replaced her torn garments, white and silver, embroidered with that same crest. Her silver hair flowed freely over her shoulders. The violet eyes were no longer frightened. They were commanding. "You're awake," she said softly. Kale tried to sit up, wincing. "Who are you?" The armored men dropped to one knee. All of them. Even the commander at her side bowed his head. The girl stepped closer to the cot. "My name," she said gently, "is Seraphine Valarin." The name struck him like another lightning bolt. Princess Seraphine Valarin. He had heard whispers in black market channels. The lost heir of Estra, presumed dead when rebels bombed a royal convoy months ago. The kingdom had fractured since. "You," his voice cracked. "You're the princess." She studied him for a long moment.
"Yes."
Silence settled heavily in the bunker. Kale let out a dry, incredulous laugh that quickly turned into a cough. "Figures. You risked your life for mine," Seraphine said. "Without knowing who I was, would it have mattered?" She hesitated. "No," she admitted quietly. He leaned back against a pillow, exhaustion dragging at him. "Then that's your answer." The commander stepped forward, frowning. "Your Highness, this man was exposed to lethal radiation levels. He should be quarantined. His survival odds." "I am aware," Seraphine interrupted sharply. Your thought in her voice silenced the room. She turned back to Kale. "Physicians stabilized you. The cloak absorbed most of the radiation meant for me. Your back took the rest." He shrugged slightly. then regretted it as pain flared. Guess it did its job. You could have died, so could you. Their eyes locked. For a moment, titles vanished. There was only the storm between them. Later, after the soldiers withdrew, Serafini remained by his bedside. You didn't hesitate, she said quietly. Kale stared at the ceiling. Hesitation gets people killed. Most would have left me. Most aren't me. A faint smile touched her lips. You know what saving me means? She asked. Trouble? She laughed softly. The sound was lighter, now freer. It means, she said, that you saved the future of Estra. He turned his head to look at her fully. That sounds expensive. It is. Outside the bunker, engines roared, royal transports arriving. My kingdom is fractured, she continued. Rebels control half the territories. My council doubts my strength. They believe I am too young, too sheltered. Kale snorted. They should have seen you in that storm. She stepped closer. Walk with me, she said. He blinked. Walk. I can barely when you heal, she clarified. Stand beside me. Realization dawned slowly. You're offering me a position. I am offering you more than that. The weight of her gaze pressed against him. You risked everything for a stranger, she said. A ruler needs someone who values lives over crowns. He swallowed. I'm no noble. I don't need a noble. Silence stretched. Again, but this time, it felt different. Charged. I need someone brave enough to stand in the storm. The words hit harder than any radiation burn. Kale looked down at his bandaged hands, at the scars already forming. He had lived his life drifting through ruins, owing nothing to anyone. But in that storm, something had shifted. You don't even know me, he said quietly. I know enough, Serafine replied. You chose compassion when it cost you everything. She extended a hand. Roya, steady. If you accept, you will be protected, healed, given purpose. And if I refuse, her expression softened, then I will still ensure you are cared for, because you deserve that much. No threats, no manipulation, just gratitude. Kale studied her face, the same face that had looked up at him beneath toxic rain, terrified and small. Now she stood tall, unbreakable. He exhaled slowly. Looks like I gambled more than my life in that storm, he muttered. Serafini tilted her head. What do you mean? He met her violet eyes. I might have gambled my future too. For the first time since the rain began, warmth not radiation spread through him. And this time, it didn't burn. Outside, the clouds parted over Istra, a kingdom scarred by rebellion. A princess reborn in fire. And a man who had shielded her without knowing royal blood ran through her veins, now standing on the edge of a destiny neither of them had planned. But both were ready to face, together.